Major funding for this program has been provided by the National Endowment for the Humanities. Additional funding has been provided by the National Science Foundation, supporting education and research in science, mathematics, and technology. The Arthur Vining Davis Foundations, and the American Architectural Foundation.
This is a plaster cast of a man writhing in agony as he suffocates, buried alive in burning volcanic ash. Thousands of people died this way in the Roman city of Pompeii one August day in 79 AD. This entire city was smothered beneath a 12-foot blanket of ash that fell from Mount Vesuvius, still haunting and threatening above the Bay of Naples. Nearby, Herculaneum suffered a different but no less horrible fate.
It was buried beneath a sea of volcanic mud. But this tragedy managed to leave its own memorial. Pompeii and Herculaneum stayed buried for more than 1,600 years. And when excavations began, they revealed a picture of everyday life in one of the world's most influential civilizations. Of Roman cities can be found across 3 continents, visible proof of the impact of this ancient culture of city builders. In fact, much of what makes up our modern cities, the grand public buildings, theaters and stadiums, the way streets and blocks are laid out, even municipal water supplies, all have their roots in ancient Roman cities.
To the Romans, the city was more than a collection of bricks, blocks, and buildings. It was the center of their culture. Legend has it that Rome was founded near where I'm standing by Romulus and Remus, 2 young princes cast out to die by their jealous uncle, but saved and nurtured by a wolf to fulfill their destiny.
The guiding spirit of Romulus was never far from the hearts and minds of those who built Rome's cities, which eventually stretched from one end of the Western world to the other. By the time of Jesus, the Romans controlled much of Europe and the Mediterranean. Rome built its empire through alliances, treaties, and military conquests. And until the empire began to collapse around 400 AD, its provinces and territories contributed heavily to the wealth and status of the city of Rome.
This is a model of Rome at the height of the empire, about 300 AD. It gives us a good idea of the size and complexity of this fabled city. And like most modern cities, ancient Rome was noisy, congested, and expensive. It boasted a population of over 1 million, far larger than any other city in the world. It was the place to live, a symbol that all Romans held culturally and spiritually dear. And wherever they settled, they tried to recreate the best aspects of Mother Rome.
Structures like these were built from Spain to the Dead Sea, from Britain to North Africa. And they were built to last, first in cut blocks of quarried stone, later in brick-faced concrete. Romans came not just to conquer, but to stay. And the cities they built would alter the character of the land and the world of its people forever.
To the Romans, a well-planned city, like Nîmes here in southern France, began with its layout or grid, which time and sprawl have erased. But this is what it would once have looked like. Virtually all Roman cities were laid out in this regular pattern of streets and blocks, with the major public buildings located in the center, or forum. Now, each city needed certain things: houses, markets, and shops, aqueducts or some system for bringing in fresh water, baths and playing fields for the body, temples for the soul, theaters and amphitheaters for entertainment. And a city also needed walls. Walls, like these at Pompeii, set the geographic limits of the city and offered defense against enemies. And just inside the walls, a sacred trench called the Pomerium defined the spiritual boundary of the city and assured the protection of the gods for all its inhabitants. To the Romans, the wall and the Pomerium were the dividing line between order and disorder, between culture and chaos. The gates in the walls lead to the main streets, which in turn open onto the Forum. The Forum was the focal point of commerce and local politics. As you can see, it's still pretty much the center of things. Along this side of the Forum of Pompeii was a large market called the Macellum. Next to it, another market just for the sale of cloth. Across the way, the large basilica, which housed the courts of law. There was a speaker's platform and the other main government buildings. Dominating the entire space was the temple of Jupiter, Juno, and Minerva, which symbolically and spiritually linked this city with Rome itself. If I were standing here 2,000 years ago, I would have been surrounded by a two-story colonnade that provided shade for the throngs who came here daily. The Forum was the heart of the city, physically connecting it to the surrounding farmland, and in turn linking the entire region with Rome.
The spread of Roman cities affected all the regions they touched, whether the local inhabitants liked it or not. This was particularly true in France, an area the Romans called Gaul. The Celtic people of Gaul were forcibly subdued in a campaign led by the most famous Roman of them all, Julius Caesar. He was eventually succeeded by his nephew Augustus, who tied Gaul more closely to Rome, especially through new cities built on the sites of Caesar's victories.
Our story begins in the year 27 BC. A generation has settled the dust of conflict, but not the bitter memories. And a town we're calling Verbonia is beginning its new life as a city of empire.
My friends, ever since Julius Caesar came, our lives have not been our own. He burned our land, killed our sons and carried off our women. He humiliated our leader, the great Vercingetorix, bringing him in chains back to Rome. And at Uxellodunum, our last stronghold, he cut off the right hands of our warriors.
Here they come, Marcus Fabricius. Caesar Augustus's legions, now beginning new lives as merchants and farmers in the midst of this Celtic wilderness.
But with the help of the gods, Verbonia will soon rival any city in Gaul and reflect the glory of Rome herself.
As long as the Celts keep the peace and do not plague us with their mischief.
And if they do, they shall feel the might of Rome yet again.
Ah, Turia, you are here. Come, let us greet our citizens, as befits the new leader of his community and his gracious wife.
Gaius Valerius was one of Augustus Caesar's greatest generals. And when the emperor honored him with leading the founding of this new colony in Gaul, the general so honored me, a humble military engineer, with the task of overseeing its construction. I only hope I can prove a worthy architect.
Build it strong, Marcus Fabricius. It is our first line of defense if we are ever threatened.
Though he's laid down his sword, Gaius Valerius still thinks with the common sense of a general.
Careful, you fools. Careful. Careful!
The esteemed Licinus is himself of this land. He had been Julius Caesar's slave, then Caesar freed him. Now, he's procurator of all Gaul, representative of Caesar Augustus himself, and a figure of universal respect.
The insufferable low-born slug.
I hope you have a better set of plans this time for me to bother coming out in this heat.
I trust you'll find these satisfactory. Marcus?
My slave, Lorenz, was a gift from Gaius Valerius, demonstrating, I'm sure, his great esteem for me.
As in every Roman town, Verbonia will have an orderly arrangement of streets and blocks that will lay out nicely along the river. Here we have the forum, the market, the bathhouse, and the basilica.
And here's the one you specifically asked for, Procurator. A theatre for the entertainment of the populace.
And you make certain my statue is prominently displayed? Above the stage?
Oh, yes, certainly. The sculptors are carving it now.
Personally, I'm looking forward to the time when we can build an amphitheatre for our gladiators and have some real drama.
Well and good. But the city's first priority must be houses. I trust you are making your assignments with the proper people in mind.
We have saved you a prime plot within the city, as well as a large estate in the hills beyond.
I should hope so. I also trust you are now enlisting the aid and goodwill of my native people in your efforts to build the city.
Yes. My engineer, Marcus Fabricius, is paying a call on the Celtic leader, Macaulary, tomorrow.
Macaulary had a formidable reputation.
Wonderful neighbours, these Gauls. Not everyone would think to put skulls in a doorway.
They're from my father's time. We haven't done much of that lately. Now, what is it you wish of me and my people?
Acco graciously extended the courtesy of his house. Before long, we were able to strike a bargain. He would provide a sufficient number of skilled craftsmen, and they in turn would receive a year's free use of the Verbonia docks. Now your fine ironwork will be seen all the way to Egypt, and merchants will come from far and wide, offering you trade. Acco also introduced me to his lovely daughter, Aidan, of whom he is most proud. She has a proper and gratifying respect for her father, and if she were only a Roman citizen, she might make a fine wife.
Father, I think you like having the Romans here.
I do not like having the Romans here. When I was your age, I fought the Romans. But that was the past. We have to look to the future, and like it or not, the future is with Rome.
Not everyone agrees with you.
You're not speaking of the Druids, are you?
And if I am?
You had better not be mixed up with the Druids. Did you hear me, Aidan Bouviax?